We've lost some time. Welcome everybody in this webinar from the Titan project, where we invite some partners to to tell about the work that they are doing. And today we have a really nice lineup. I will first share my screen. On the recommendation of Francois, I made a PDF. So today we have three presentations. Francois will kick off with the latest insights in food safety management. Then Anna and Elena, on behalf of ASTI, will give a presentation about a sustainable tool to change eating habits in children. And last but not least, Maria Eleni will speak about the digital transformation journey of food manufacturers, a very important topic, and I hope she can bring some really nice information to the table. What I would like to share is that last week, the new newsletter of Titan was published. It is available on the website, and when you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe for our newsletter. It contains some really nice topics, like Agrono being present at the IPE conference, IPE Expo, the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and you see quite some people from ASTI in this picture, and also opportunities for you when you have time left to watch videos or listen podcasts. We try to collect all this type of information on the topic. When attached to this, there's also a PDF with a lot of publications and reports that we think are really relevant for the topic. Here you have some examples about food safety and fermentation. And here you have some information that could be relevant for the presentation from Anna and Elena later today. For the ones that maybe that could not join last week, we have 8 new pilots in Titan. They presented themselves last week in a webinar. Here you see their names. There are 4 from Spain, 1 from Germany, 1 from France and UK, which is quite a typical combination, 1 from Italy and 1 from the Netherlands. And then the next webinar is already planned, and I hope that the connection will be easier that time. So on the 5th of June, Marta Prado Rodriguez from the University Santiago de Compostela will speak about portable DNA-based detection methods. Verena Otto from Wageningen University will speak about sustainable supply chains and the net chain method that they are using. And Joe Livingstone from Queen's University Belfast will speak about front-of-pack labeling for health and sustainability. Okay, that is my short introduction. I'll stop sharing and I'll give the floor to Francois to start off.
Okay, thank you, Edward. So my job today is to share you some latest insights on food safety management. Of course, they will be a bias because these are the insights that I believe to be relevant. Might be a lot of others. First point is when we discuss about food safety management is to agree upon the definition. And I will take the one from the ISO 22000, which may mention that it's the responsibility of food producer to manage the safety. And ISO 22000 is one of the certification schemes that explain the rules and procedures that should be in place. Why should we have those? Well, basically, we don't have per se a choice. It's the regulatory requirements. And that's what you have in the section 4, article 15 of the General Food Law. Food shall not be placed on the market if it is unsafe. And it's the responsibility of the food business operators for the European market to make sure that the food he has produced indeed is fit for purpose. It means it's not injurious to health and it's fit for human consumption. So in the definition of food safety from the EU regulation, you have both spoilers and pathogen of concern when it comes to microorganisms, or also composition on organoleptic for chemistry as well as the toxicology. So it's a bit complex. In terms of insights, based on what's going on in the literature, in the discussion from different food safety news, food safety conference and whatsoever, I will propose you 4 insights, which are not necessarily that new for some of them, but per se are still ongoing, because this is where we have the major work to be done by the food business organizations. The first one is on food safety culture. Yes, food safety culture, again, that's not something per se very new. It's coming from an initiative from Frank Yanas, who used to be the president of the IAFP, the International Association of Food Protections, 20 years ago. He was also VP Food Safety for Disney. People believe that Disney is only about entertainment and movies, but it's also a major food distributors in all the parks and system. Hence, food safety is very relevant. He was also VP for Walmart distributors and recently Deputy Commissioner for Food at the FDA. And this work, initially published from Frank, has been taken over by the GFSI, the Global Food Safety Initiative, in a position paper. Why all of this? Because in September 2020, food safety culture was embedded in the general principle on food hygiene from the Codex Alimentarius. And it was also for Europe embedded in the update of the EU food law in the 852/2004, where they mentioned per se all the work that needs to be done in food safety culture, which means that basically you can agree or not agree whether food safety culture makes sense, whether it's the mother of all concerns or whatsoever. We could discuss this. But the point is, it's mandatory by law, which means that in the certification scheme, it has been incorporated in internal featured standard in version 7 and recently in version 8, which was published the last year. The BRC, the British Retail Consortium, with the BRCGS again in V8 and V9. V9 was published in 2022. And you've got the FSSC 22000 Food Safety Certification Scheme, also in version 5.1 and 0.6. So I'm not going to discuss in details about the food safety culture. When you see a lot of incidents, people always say it's a food safety culture issue, it's a food safety culture issue, as if nothing was existing before. That's not exactly the case, but it's important to have this in mind. Every food business company has a food safety culture. Now you have to show and prove it's efficient, it's working, and it's really embedded in the global culture of the company, which is something also that we are discovering more and more. It's fine to speak about food safety culture, but it has to be aligned with the global company culture. The other one, which is also all in one box, is the processing environment monitoring that you hear a lot about. Luckily, we have had a very recent publication, which was adopted in December 2023 and published late January from EFSA, when they mentioned about the persistence of microbial hazards in food and feed production and processing environments. Why all this focus? This is something that at the food industry, microbiologists, we know for more than 20 years. But we had recent outbreaks in food business member states. For example, in 2017 from Salmonella agona in France, in 2019 from Salmonella pruna in Spain, where by whole genome sequencing, we have seen that the strain isolated during this outbreak was the same isolated some 10 years ago. Most recently in the US, they are debating a lot about the decade-long outbreak of Listeria. There have been only 26 cases, which is not that much for Listeria outbreak, but during more than 10 years, which means approximately two cases per year in 11 states in the US. And it was very complicated for them to find what was behind. And finally, they found one factory implicated for this. What does it mean? And that's something that we already know for a while. Finished product testing does not make it all. Far from it. And that was the point of the incorporation of HACCP and the upgrade of all the code of hygienic practice to move away from more reactive stance in finished product testing to proactive when it makes sense in the environment. And that's what the publication of EFSA is particularly relevant, because right now people, every time they have an issue, they look in the environment, but not necessarily so. The work from EFSA is very relevant as it shows that for Listeria monocytogenes and Listeria spp and ready-to-eat foods, in Salmonella in low moisture food processing environment, for Chronobacter for infant formulation, yes, looking in the environment does make sense. Now, for example, we had a recent outbreak in France with Shiga toxic E. coli in raw milk cheese. Well, there is no need to look in the processing environment of the cheese factory because this type of issue comes from the primary production, which is something to have in mind. Yes, we have to look in the environment, but not all hazards do come from the processing environment. So it's important, but it does not cover all the issues. And we can reasonably expect from this recent publication of EFSA that there should be an update and modification from the EU 2073-2005 regulation. That's the regulation for microbial criteria for foodstuff. Right now, it's only requiring Listeria monocytogenes for ready-to-eat foods, and it's requiring Salmonella SPP and Chronobacter for infant formula. But per se, if you strictly adhere to this regulation 2073-2005, as low moisture food, you are not bound to look in your environment. But we know more than 40 years that in cereals, food productions, in chocolate food production, in all low moisture food production, we should look for Salmonella. So we can reasonably expect that it will bring some clarity in the regulation and explain what you should focus on in terms of pathogens of concern. One or other relevant point is to mention that Enterobacteriaceae are an hygienic indicator. And per se, we do not have persistent strains of Enterobacteriaceae. Hence, there is no correlation in monitoring from the hygiene on one side and monitoring for pathogen of concern on the other. This was a mistake that was done by Abbott in the US some 2 years ago, where they only were monitoring for Enterobacteriaceae, and only in case of deviation would be looking for Salmonella and Chronobacter, and it did not end in a good way, which means that it's important to look in the environment where the pathogen do make sense, and for now it's only recognized to making sense for Listeria monocytogenes and Listeria SPP, Salmonella and Chronobacter. It has to be estimated if it does make sense for other pathogens, but for the moment we do not have clear data that can provide the same strong status. We have also recent publication following all this buzzword around environment monitoring. One is from the reference laboratory from Europe Listeria, which is ANSES, the French Food Safety Authority in France, where they updated the version 4 of the technical guidance on sampling, which is basically explaining that everything is in the ISO 18593. So there is not so much details in this publication apart from referring to the ISO, but it was a long-awaited update because the previous version of this guideline was from 2012. And with ILSI Europe and several other authors, we have been working on processing environment in low moisture food in order to check if the recommendation from the Codex Alimentarius were still making sense, and they do. And luckily, we are also aligned with the work from EFSA. There are some guidance documents from professional organizations, like for example from Profel, which made this publication in 2020 following the frozen corn outbreak of Listeria ST6 in the Hungarian factory from Gdynia, and they mention where you should be looking. This guideline is particularly interesting because it's the first European guideline using the proximity approach promoted by the ICMSF. So proximity approach has been promoted for more than 20 years now by the International Commission of Microbial Specification in Food, and it's still not understood, trained in most of the food business operators in Europe. It's already in the expectation from North America, but that's the first professional guideline from Europe referring to this proximity approach. And you also had the update of the guidance document from the FSSC 22000 from last summer, also referring to these new documents. I'm not going to be too precise and go in too much details on this one. That's the food safety 4.0. It's a digitalization, because that's something that will be discussed later on today with example of real life example from the food industry. But it's something that is driven by major publication. One is from the FAO in 2018, and it was for preparing the different symposia that the FAO organized in 2020, 2021 on the future of food. The other one is also coming from the meeting of the agriculture minister of the OECD, when they mentioned that digital transformation of the agriculture and food system and something that we should go for. And it's very relevant for the work done by Titan project, because Titan is really moving forward into solution for enhancing transparency in the food chain. And they provide the model where indeed it will make sense to use the different data coming from the farm, but in order to have proper storage, linking them to different sources for big data analysis and providing through, and I'm going to get Eleni discuss this further, so analytics and modeling, how you can make something out of the data. It's something really to have in mind. It's important to digitalize, but the first thing is to have data that do make sense. We are generating in the food systems a lot of data. Unfortunately, most of them do not make sense. So it's also not to be challenged. We have also to be careful with the quality of data, which means data that do make sense, but also relevant data, which means also the validation and verification of the analytical methods which are used for generating this data. Because if we don't use the correct method, or we don't have the capacity to do it properly, we might take wrong decision. So it's very important to have the basis in place before you start to do something with the data, and make sure that you are sitting on a pile of gold and not a pile of garbage. The last one in terms of food safety management insight is coming also from very recent work from the FAO and also from ILAC and ISO. It's about climate change. So climate change is indeed changing the way we need to look at food safety. It's about new emerging risks, also old hazards that come again on the top of the agenda. There have been publications from the FAO in 2020, and there was another one as from the European project, which was produced also in 2020. So we've been pretty busy during the COVID phase. And most recently, so that's a publication, as you can see, from February 22, there was a joint communique from the International Accreditation Forum and ISO about the addition of climate change into management system standard. So they are going to modify a lot of management standards, which are part of the ISO. And during all these standards amended, one of them, which is of key interest for us, is the ISO 22000. Where they want to make sure that we will consider climate change issues in the effectiveness of the management system. For food safety management, it means also that we have to make sure that the hazard analysis has been updated. One of the major concerns we do have in the food and feed chain right now with climate change is mycotoxin. We're considering this enough. There are new emerging bugs, new coming bugs that we also need to consider. Spoilage also can be an issue. So it's important not to overlook what climate change will do and how it will impact the food chain, and also for cold chain storage, for example. So a lot of points to consider. Having said that, I'm not going to debate about the recent farm to fork strategy, which has been highly debated in the streets in different countries in Europe, and particularly in France. It's important to have in mind that food safety and food sustainability have to come together. So you see a lot of discussion addressing food safety versus food sustainability. You cannot anymore have one without the other. We need to have food sustainability in order to ensure security and eventually sovereignty on the food production. But basically, it's something to remember, and that's the mantra from the FAO. If it isn't safe, it isn't food. And if you want to make sure that you are answering to the Sustainable Development Goals number 3, good health and well-being, it's paramount to have food safety. Yes, we need better practices for food sustainability, for healthy food, but at the base of the pyramid, we have food safety, and that's something that cannot be taken for granted. Hence, a lot of insights needed in the food safety management to make sure that we are keeping with the modification and the new trends in the food chain. And voila. Closing in time. If there are any questions, I think we're taking them later.
Yes, I just wanted to say that we forgot to tell before, because of all the technical problems and so on, that questions should be added to the chat, and then we will answer them at the end of the presentations. And also that the meeting is being recorded. Sorry, we didn't let you know before. Now, Edward.
Yeah, thank you, Francois. Really nice information. A lot of interesting reports that you have showed. And please, for the people in the audience store your questions, and then we come back to them later. Then I give the floor to Anna and Elena to share the screen and present.
Okay. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay, so my name is Elena Santa Cruz. I'm here with my colleague Ana Baranda. We are part of the team in ASTI, which is working in this pilot case in the work package 6 in Titan. But we are going to present today some of the results of the co-creation stage of our study. Our study is part of the pilot cases in the work package 6. So that we are working here to improve, to get solutions and tools to improve health choices. Particularly, we are developing here a tool for parents and kids. We are going to give you more information now. And here we are working with the University of Helsinki, of Warsaw, also Total Control in Norway, and AI Talentum, who is the expert on the technology, on the artificial intelligence that is the main technology in our tool. So our pilot case starts because we know that there are some malnutrition, but also overweight is becoming an important problem in the childhood. We know that these problems are becoming also important in the future. Being obese in the childhood is going to cause problems in the adulthood. So in this scenario, we know that education can be an important tool to change unhealthy habits, but also to establish new healthy habits. So we wanted to go for an effective approach. And we know that the different interactive approach that we have previous experience in other projects, like cooking activities, testing sessions, but also gamification and combining new technologies with the educational content was something that could provide us a bigger and a longer change. So that's why we start designing this pilot case that aims to design a tool to provide educational content for families and children between 12 years old to help them to improve their choices. So we would like to change the habits, which is a very big challenge in terms of health, but also trying to have an impact on the way that they see the sustainability on the food. And for us, it's very important that we are going to use a new technology, as is the artificial intelligence, but we would like to adapt the style to the specific target that we are approaching, and taking all the time into account the child's perspective. So for us, the key elements is that we are going to provide a funny and interactive way of learning. We would like to create clear and trustable information, because we know that we have a lot of access to a lot of information, but sometimes it's not trustable. So we would like to work on content about food nutrition, about food science, sustainability, and everything is going to be based on this technology, the artificial intelligence technology. So our platform, the idea is that we are going to have different sections on the platform. First, this educational chatbot to have conversations with the kids. It's going to be like a guided conversation. Then we are going to include also an image recognition system to propose a challenge to the kids. and a gamification experience in order to engage them and to have like an attractive part for them, because they are very used to the games. But at the same time, and because this is something that we found that was a concern from the parents, we are not going to limitate the game in the digital world, in the tool. We are going to propose other challenges outside the games to get them engaged, and not all the time like playing with a digital tool, and with a mobile or a tablet or whatever. And also we are going to have different contents to educate, to teach, to provide information for both families and for the adults and the children. So the methodology that we use for the co-creation phase to get them participate and be part of the design of our tool was we had two different approaches, a qualitative approach and a quantitative approach. Regarding the qualitative approach, we arranged different co-creation sessions, different focus groups with parents and also with children. And then we have also different in-depth interviews with different profiles, with different stakeholders, teachers, parents, and we share a questionnaire between adults, between families with children between 6 and 12 years old. 12 years old, sorry, in the three countries, in Spain, in Poland, and Finland. The objective of the focus group sessions that we had with parents and children was mainly to explore with them the style, the vocabulary, the content, but also to get their feedback, the perception on the different ideas that we were already working on, not just the concepts, also the characters that, as we are going to see now, the characters, the storyline, and the whole idea of the tool, and the different sections that we were working on. And also, I think this is a very interesting part of the sessions, we were able to co-create with them, to work with them in different new ideas for the tool. For the in-depth interviews, the idea was to check with different profiles that they are very related to the education of the kids, and they are involved on the things that they are using and the different tools that they are using. So we check with different profiles like teachers, nutritionists, psychologists, decision makers. Also the parents were involved in this kind of one-to-one interviews in order to get their perception of the tool, and also to explore with them different successful approaches or initiatives that they know. So maybe we could learn from them and use them for the design. And regarding the questionnaire, we have we share in these three countries the questionnaire. It was more focused on the content to adapt, because we wanted to make sure that the content that we were designing was really interesting for them. So the objective was to adapt the tool to the real needs and to explore the barriers, the gaps in terms of knowledge that they have in regarding health and sustainability. So we include different questions around nutrition, habits, frequency of consumption, also their interest, the kind of information that they are looking for when they look for information around health, nutrition, or eating, or the way that they include all these things in their at home. So and it was interesting because their answers were not related just for the adults, also to the children of the family. Okay, so now I'm going to present you some of the results of this part of the first of the qualitative parts that we had with them. Well, we present the different characters, the storyline, what was behind the gamification part of the story that we are going to include in the tool. Well, as you can see, the story is based on the near future. The astronauts are the characters. This is the hacker, the evil of the game, and there are different spacecraft that you can adapt to your story and everything. So they have the chance to provide us their feedback. And the good news was that they find it very, especially the kids, the feedback was very positive. They sound very identified with the characters. They evaluated very well the characters, the story, the space setting, and they found very positive that they could customize the characters. They add new ideas regarding the gamification experience, proposing to add new incentives to reach different levels, because that's a very important component for the gamification. And we were also able to create and work with them on the creation of new ideas for the missions, new challenges. So here, for example, you can see some of the activities that we did with them in order to create these new missions for the game. They even changed some of the characteristics of the characters, and they suggest new spaceships and new challenges to be solved by the game. So that's what was very creative part and very useful for this gamification part. The gamification part has been already tested in the last part of the year in December with a collaborator that we are working on with in this part, and the results were very good because they found it very funny, attractive. So we have a very good experience here. So now we are trying to include these learnings in the final version and try to also use some of the learnings for the other parts of the tool. Apart from that, more focus on the content. We work especially with the parents. We show the different topics, and we saw this is a mock-up of the chatbot that we showed them during the sessions. So they were able to talk about the different categories, the different topics, and the specific topics that they expected to find behind those big titles. So they provide us a lot of different ideas of specific topics that now we are already working on them to cover them. And that's something very interesting because we have also confirmed by the quantitative approach that they were very interested in knowing more about the sustainability eating. They are quite concerned about how to eat in a healthier way and in the nutritional part, but they kind of know more around that topic. So they are concerned and they would like to know more about how to eat in a more sustainable way. We have also this exercise. We did also this exercise with the kids, and obviously here for them was they were more interested in topics and approaches more interactive, like recipes, experiments, how food is made. These kind of topics, like we already knew that they are more interested in this kind of approaches. So we need to find the balance of the way to provide content, educational content, to teach them different topics, but also let them think like they are playing and experiencing around the food and the different content, so they can have like a funny experience, not just learning and reading. So they find that they want to find everything in a like a funny game. And now to finalize with this part, just to show you that in the co-creation session we were able also to reduce the food categories that we had at the beginning. At the beginning we had 16 food categories where we were working on. Now we are working on more than 200 food items, but we have them divided in these 8 food products. And now I think I'm going to leave you with Anna, who is going to explain you more about the content and the way that the questionnaire is going to help us to design it.
Thank you, Elena. So as Elena mentioned before, the questionnaire was done just to know more about the knowledge, attitude, perception, and interest of people, of families, regarding health and sustainable eating. So the first question of our questionnaire was, well, first I'm going just to show you short, just a few results, because as Elena said, it was really long questionnaire, so I'm going to show you the more important ones. So the first question we asked them to answer was in which extent they agree with these 2 following statements. I know what healthy eating is, and I know what sustainable eating is. So they have to do it within a scale going from 1 to 5, being 1, I strongly disagree, and 5, I strongly agree. And so as you can see here, we had very good marks for healthy eating. It seems that people in the 3 countries know, they think they know about healthy eating, but a little bit lower marks for the term sustainability. Okay, so maybe we can think that we know about what something is, but we want to check if they really knew. So the way we used was to tell them to choose all the concepts that they thought it could be related with healthy eating. So among them, there are some of them that is clear that are clear for in the most in the 3 countries. They are related with healthy eating, but there are others that it seems that we have to work providing more information, because people in general don't think are related with this concept. For example, like consumption of the prioritization of the consumption of whole grains, or to have a maximum of 2 to 3 servings a day of dairy. In the same way, we ask families which of the concepts they thought could be related with sustainable eating. And as it happens before, there are some concepts that are quite known, as it could be the reduction of food waste, but there are others that we have to work on them, as it could be the consumption of organic foods products, or the prioritization of plant-based protein sources. If we ask families about their attitude, and we ask them in which degree in which extent they agree with the following statements, we can find that they would like to change their diet to make it more sustainable or healthier. There are some concepts that they would like to improve, as it could be the eating of more fruit and vegetables or more fish, but there are others that they are a little bit more reluctant, as it could be the eating of less meat or less dairy. So here we are going to work in how to provide this information to let them know why these concepts are also important. We found also that families are interested in food. Many people look for information about the food they consume, and the main media to obtain this kind of information is through web browsing. At the same time, we've asked families which were the main topics they could be interested in related with health and also with sustainability. So in terms of health, it seems that they are more interested in knowing more about food safety, the impact of food in health, and all this kind of information related with ingredients, as it could be the quality or the different types. In terms of sustainability, they are more interested in getting information about food recipes, seasonal food, and also the origin of food or ingredients. We asked also the families about if they thought it could be important for their children to get also information about food and which could be the most interesting topics for their children. And it seems that in the 3 countries, they agree that the more interesting is all this information related with health. And at the same time, it's important to provide the information in the right style. As scientists, we can write a lot of interesting information, but if the style is not appropriate, for sure nobody is going to read it. So for the adults, it seems that they will prefer to get this information with a short writing or a link to a web of reference, or even with something visual like infography. And for children, it seems they prefer to get this information as a short writing or a video. And so with all this information, we are taking into account this information to provide the content to our platform following these requirements.
Okay, so now just to wrap up some of the conclusions that we got from this co-creation stage. The good news is that we are using our right channel because they are both targets are very used to this kind of tool, but there is a great competence in terms of entertainment, but our purpose is not just to entertain them. We would like to teach them, to provide content of interest. So we would like to get a bigger change with the tool. There is a need of providing trustable information because internet, they don't find internet that is always reliable. So we need to work on the scientific part of the content that we are providing. Also on the style, the way is very important. The format, the style, the vocabulary, and the approach that we are using is very important for us. There is a big lack of info. They seem to have some knowledge about what a healthy diet is or other kind of topics, but they want to know more about sustainable food and other tips to guide their food consumption at home. It's very important that we try to involve different people, because not just the kids, also their parents and educators and all other actors are very important if we want to have a very effective tool. So we will try to involve different actors in the interventions and also in the use of the tool finally. And we have observed that there is a room to get changes in different habits, like the improvement of the the consumption of legumes, fruits and vegetables. So there is still a lot of things to do there. So that's good because we have opportunities to get things with the tool. And just to share with you some of the next steps that we are focusing now. Now we are working on the artificial intelligence sections and the technologies and the different parts of the tool. We are creating and designing new complementary content. The tool is going to be adapted and translated to the different languages of the pilot case partners. And once we have a version to be tested, we will like to test it in different scenarios, in different schools and different contexts and countries. And the interventions are going to be oriented not just to test the usability of the tool and the perception and the feedback of the tool. Also, we would like to use the tool as a part of a bigger intervention and to see if the use of the tool is getting an impact on the habits and the perception of the different targets. So that's what we wanted to share with you today. Happy to answer any questions about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Elena and Anna. This was really impressive. I have an idea about what we are doing in Titan, but not to such a detail. So this is really a lot of work you're doing. Really, you have really shared a lot of highly valuable information. First, we listen to Maria Eleni, and then people can start to ask questions.
Okay.
And the topic from Marilena I got from her CEO. He posted on LinkedIn that he was thinking about this, had some nice ideas about it. And I know from other partners that it's quite a challenge to get especially smaller companies to become more digital. So please, Marilena, share your knowledge with us.
Hello everyone, my name is Marilena. I work as a research project manager at Agronome. So my presentation will be about the digital transformation journey of food manufacturers. So to start with, let's share some things about Agronome. So our CEO, Nikos Manouselis, founded Agronome with a vision to contribute to food safety from the data perspective. He founded Agronome in Chania, in Crete, in 2008. And today, 16 years later, we are proudly based in Athens. And this vision of Nikos has evolved to our mission as company. Let's make sure that everyone has access to safer food. So we have two main products, Foodakai and Riska Data. Foodakai is a food risk intelligence platform, and Riska Data is a service that we offer to our clients. So based on these two offerings, we can predict food risks and help them inform preventive measures. So how does Foodakai collect and transfer all this information? Foodakai collects with the use of a crawler algorithm on daily basis food safety announcements from over 190 countries globally, food safety announcements and food fraud announcements as well. We use another algorithm, NLP, to translate all this information into English, and we provide the end user a harmonized report. So here is a list of some data, some public authorities that we collect the data. As for numbers, we have over 155 million of records from official trusted sources and over 100 billion records from social media. Actually, Foodakai has 7 modules that enable the end user to, for example, have a real-time incidents monitoring and alerting. So he can be aware of all the relevant food safety incidents in the supply chain that he's interested in. He can have also some insights about the emerging hazards for their ingredient or the product, or even for the geographical region that he is interested in. Food.Akai also provides supplier evaluation, so the end user can decide which supplier should choose. Then we have an automated reporting, so we can answer also the simple question, how can I have a quick overview of incidents and recalls for our brand versus competition? We also gather some global lab test insights, and we know which are the hazards we should test for. We have also an automated risk assessment, so we can have a real-time and accurate risk assessment for ingredients, products, and suppliers. And finally, the most popular module is about the risk prediction. So we are able, based on this data, to answer the simple question, which will be the next food safety incident in my supply chain. And thus bring us to the digital transformative journey of food manufacturers. So I have gathered some challenges that they share with us. I have categorized them in 3 main groups. First of all, the risk monitoring. So the clients say that they are uncertain whether food safety incidents alerts received are accurate, complete, and up to date. And they are also struggling at identifying data that's relevant to various teams and roles from extremely large and highly heterogeneous data pools. Regarding the risk prevention, they lack a systematic and informed way to design or to update full risk prevention plans in near real time, or they have increased concern about unexpected, unforeseen food safety risks that may emerge in their supply chain. And finally, regarding the risk assessment, they say that performing a critical ingredient and supply risk assessment using spreadsheets is something crucial, and they usually lack of an integrating system for risk and vulnerability assessment of suppliers. And we can see also some statistics. So how do companies monitor risks today? 36 of the companies today systematically devote time to search various online sources and sites about emerging issues and hazards that could affect their supply chain. 28% of them regularly monitor 2 or 3 official sources of information, such as RAS or the FDA. 22% of companies in the food industry, they are using a third-party horizon scanning service that provides them with alerts and notification about relevant incidents. Only 11% rely upon suppliers to notify them about critical incidents and do not search online for relevant announcements. And finally, only 3% have developed their own horizon scanning software that monitors a variety of online sources and provides them with alerts and notification. So in this journey, recently, a new era of smarter food safety has been evolved through the new rule proposed from FDA about food traceability. So it seems that the digital food safety landscape is changing. FDA is proposing to establish additional traceability record-keeping requirements, not only for manufacturers, but for all the parties involved throughout the supply chain, in the processing steps, in the distribution step, etc. So when we have a new client who wants to become more digital and to adapt the AI in their workflows, we have 5 critical steps that we advise them. So the first step is that we recommend them to start with the return of investment in mind. This will help them to quantify the benefits, to clarify the goals, and get the budget approval. The next step is to decide upon a clear 3 to 5 year model and plan. So in-house versus third party is a critical decision. The third advice that we usually give them is to avoid being too technology driven, but also too technology skeptical. So AI will not solve their problem. AI will help them to automate their procedures. We want them to try to be lean and iterative in execution, to run pilots that take them somewhere and educate the internal stakeholders. And finally, to keep their eyes on the target, rethink strategically often, engage internal leaders and external partners. So we have 3 different scenarios for the deployment of options for the AI procedure. So deployment scenario number 1, we call it top-down. In this scenario, the deployment take place centrally. So we have the integration of emerging risk information into the food safety risk framework of the company. As you can see in the figure on the left, we gather in a central risk storage the external risk data from Food Akai, the internal data like audit score, lab tests, and suppliers data, and finally company's risk assessment. And we provide the end user all this information in a dashboard, in the company's central dashboard. So the purpose of this deployment is to provide to global team the information and insights on existing and emerging food safety risks to inform decisions about proactive identification and prioritization. So moving on to the deployment scenario number 2, we call it bottom-up. In this case, the integration taking place at the key levels of the organization. The purpose for that is that the quality assurance and the food safety teams at different levels can use a risk intelligence solution for improving risk monitoring, risk assessment, and risk prevention. And finally, the deployment scenario number 2, in this scenario, all key levels of the organization and the suppliers adapting this solution locally. So the emerging risk information is integrated end-to-end in the supply chain of the company. And this goes us to our work within the Titan project about the supplier dashboard. So we are working to develop a supplier dashboard in order to provide provide the industry a chance for a more sustainable options by engaging suppliers in the same solution and establishing homogeneous risk prevention approach. We want to improve collaboration with suppliers by sharing risk reports and predictions, and that leads us to a transparency solution. And finally, to ensure that preventive measures that start at the upstream and not only at the downstream of the supply chain. And that brings us to traceability and whole traceability system from farm to fork. So I have also added some mock-ups from the supplier dashboard. Here you can see that we can forecast which suppliers will have an emerging risk that may affect suppliers based on the source ingredients. We have the information about the top forecasted risks for the next 12 months. We have also information about the inspections that have been conducted, recalls, the border rejections, and we also want to send some warning letters. In addition, we have some forecasts about the geographical origins. We can identify which countries or regions may be affected in the future. As you can see here on the left, we have a map with some colors. And by this approach, we can study the forecasted safety trends in geographies of interest. Last but not least, all these forecasts can be integrated in the internal software system and dashboard of a company, so everyone can have access on daily basis, even through his mobile phone. And finally, regarding our next steps, so we need to take some actions to help stakeholders in the industry to better understand the opportunities of artificial intelligence that can lead us to better trust of the AI and then we will overcome the barrier of data sharing. So all the models will be more accurate. And finally, the overall purpose of all this project and for our company is the access to safe food for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was trying to make notes in the meantime, but you spoke so fast that you gave me a hard time. Thank you very much. Really nice. So now the presentations are open for questions. I don't know if anyone has a question from the audience. I think you can start waving, and then we can see who wants to ask a question. Otherwise, I'll kick it off, and then other people can step in. So the first question is for Francois. You mentioned a lot of organizations that are involved and a lot of regulations, and at a certain moment you mentioned a regulation from, it was EU 2073/2005, that you said it requires to be updated. But maybe you can explain how that works, because maybe you can think it needs to be updated, but maybe some organization has to decide upon it, or maybe some people or organizations say to an organization, maybe we should update this one or make a next version.
Yeah, so basically all the regulations are expected to be science-based. This is the motto that you receive from the Codex Alimentarius, and that's what you see in major countries. For now, I have to say, yes, this is the case that we do have in Europe. Evolution of science makes eventually change in regulation. For example, the 2002-73/2005 dates trace back to 2005, but it's been regulated almost every 2 years and sometimes once a year. The last version is from 2022, I think, or 2021. And when there are new assessments from the risk assessment agency, which is Europe, then there is a risk management decision at the European Commission. So the regulation is a risk management decision based on the assessment from EFSA. And since EFSA is providing some clarity of persistent strain, and that it clearly explained that there is no correlation between hygiene indicator and pathogen indicator because of this resilience and this capacity to survive in the environment, one should reasonably expect that it will be embedded in specific criteria in the regulation. Now, the time frame, I do not have it, but we can reasonably anticipate that it will change. Why? Because the European food law is made from the 178/2002 and mentioned that's your responsibility to do the job. See 4 times, do the job. And basically, because not everyone can be after each publication from different agency and see what's going on, this is why they've got some, in the global food law, they've got some specific, let's say, application regulation that will support decision-making and explain the management decision. So I will, every time there have been updates in positioning from EFSA, and that's what you see in the warehouse, which started this regulation, then it's followed within 1 or 2 years by change in regulation. So that's why we can reasonably anticipate that it will change. Let's see what will be the time frame.
So it depends on steps from EFSA, let's say updates, and then automatically other updates will follow.
Not automatically, but yes, then the European Commission takes notes of the new updates from EFSA and modifies this accordingly in the regulation.
Okay, thank you. Is there already someone else with a question? Because otherwise I move to Elena and Anna. In your introduction, you mentioned the let's say percentage of children with malnutrition and a percentage of children that are overweight and obese. And I think the presentation you showed for the last category was a bit on the low side. I remember it was 4% that you showed.
Yeah.
And I looked it up for Spain, and in Spain it is almost, I think, 25%.
I mean, of
what was it?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah. In 2030. That's an estimation of the of global children population will be overweight or obese. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I think 4% was a bit low.
Oh. I will
Because
check it,
what
but I think
I have it here.
yeah.
Spain leads all countries of the European Union in child excess weight. 4 out of 10 girls and boys are living with obesity or overweight.
Yeah, that's much more than that. I will check it. Yeah, the world data.
And it was in the news this week that a large number of people, let's say worldwide, are.
Yeah, you are right. You are right, Edward. I think we did a mistake writing because the percentage is quite higher.
Yeah. I think so. That must be a mistake.
Now I have to go back to my notes. Yeah, so then I have a question about the food categories. You managed to go back in food categories from 16 to 8, which is nice because it makes it more simple. But a question I have is how does this relate, these categories, with the local nutritional guidelines? We have different systems to inform the citizens by the food authorities, and I think they have also categories. Did you look into this? Did you get feedback about this?
Yeah, is the way that sorry. Is the way that we are going to organize the information and the content, but obviously maybe Anna can provide you more information about the guidelines. We are going to include this content and this information, but we need to categorize the food products in different groups, and these groups have to make sense for them to if they are to make it simple. If you are going to look for information about a certain product, how they will look for that. So that's why we organize the groups in terms of the way that the children and adults are going to look for them. But obviously we will consider that point, Anna, in the
so in the chat what they are going to have the opportunity to ask for food items, and these are related these are going to be aggrouped in different categories. So from the point of view of science or legal or EFSA and so on, or FAO and so on, if you look for the food categories, you are going to find like 16. But obviously we are going not to give so many chances in the chatbot, and of course not children or general population, they are going not to identify the food products under so many categories. So what we did just to ask people how they understand this category. So for them is if we have to do the correspondence in the chatbot, what's an apple? Apple will be in the group of fruits and vegetables. So it's a kind of correspondence behind the chatbot. I'm not sure if I'm explaining well. So it's just to do this kind of correspondence in the chatbot where people have to look for information, and to know, we need to know how they are going to look for this information, which are the common words they are going to use, or the common language. Or it's like when we writing the facts, we wanted to know the language that the children are going to recognize. Maybe we are talking about selenium, but they don't recognize selenium, for example. Or maybe we are going to talk about calcium and they are going to recognize calcium.
Yeah. What I was thinking of is that maybe people could be confused because they see in your chatbot specific categories for foods, and from the guidelines, the nutritional guidelines they get from the authorities, they have different categories or different ways to call them. So that it could be that they come back to you with a question. Well, I hear from let's say the authorities, they have a food pyramid, and it's this, and they have distinctions and categories like this, and you have these distinctions. Can you explain to me why this is different?
If you can read the names that Elena showed in the screen, these are quite related with the nutritional guidelines. It's much more complicated than these other 16 categories which are not in the guidelines.
Yeah.
So this is more on the knowledge of people, I think.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Then I have a question for Marie-Elena. Because this was the topic, let's say how to get maybe small and medium enterprises to become more digital. And I think what you explained is that you really have nice tools that could help them, but you also have developed an approach that you can adapt to their needs. So my question was, when there is, let's say, a medium-sized company that shows interest in your tools, how does the first conversation go? Can you explain that maybe?
Oh, Edward, this question for the customer success department. But as far as I know, I think that the first step includes the understanding of how this SME or the small company works. Let's say if they have a central storage, they have like the reports from the lab test results or the investigation reports in a specific storage, and our customer success team are trying to okay, let's say have an interaction of how these this storage can be adapted in the Food Akai platform. So we can have their data in the platform, or they can have our data in their platform. We have two options. So we start with this conversation, and we have some like an interviews from the key roles. Let's say the head of the quality assurance, of the head of the food safety department, to understand their needs and their pain points and what they are interested in, and the team decides how we'll proceed.
Yeah, because you specifically mentioned to overcome the barrier to share data. So
Yes,
apparently that's an important topic for them.
yes, it is. I think that that's all because they are struggling to understand how the AI works, and they are hesitant because they think that if they share the data, maybe there will be public, but it's not that the case. The data, there are some approaches that we're working on, like the federated AI, where we can train the model inside their company. So we will not have access to any data or any information from them. Only the model will be trained inside their company.
So it means that your customer service department, they also need to have some technological knowledge to have a good conversation.
After the customer success department, we will have some meetings with the technical, the data scientists, and we are a company, we believe in the teamwork, so everyone has its role.
Okay, thank you. Then I have another question for you. You mentioned what will be the next incident in my supply chain. That can be a question that future customers have or people have. And then I related to what Francois said. What about climate change? Do you see any developments in that area that could be relevant for your customers?
Yes, they usually ask to implement in the Food Akai some weather data to see how the pathogens reacts with some weather fluctuations or with the humidity. But again, we can have the weather data when they are public, but we do need some private data from the agricultural practices, from like some sensors in the field. So if we had this data, then yes, we will have also some insights about how the climate change is affected the food safety.
But do you know already some examples of this? Francois mentioned mycotoxins. Do you know maybe more examples where climate change is influencing food safety?
Yes, we do also working on the mycotoxin models. So we have implemented some weather data and some lab test results, and we have also some use cases with some companies, and we do have some insights, but I can tell you right now because they're already under, we have submitted them in a scientific publication, and I will publish them in some days, but I don't have to share right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's a recommendation for everyone. And on LinkedIn, you and your colleagues from AgroKnow, you publish, let's say, a one-pager a few times per week, so then people can be on the watch out for your information.
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
Yeah. Thank you. And then for
Thank you.
Elena and Anna, another question. You mentioned the difference between health and sustainability. So the people that you talk to or worked with, they seem to know more about health, and maybe they are more interested in it, and less in sustainability, but they have questions. Can you explain this a little bit more?
Yeah, actually, the health and nutritional topic is included in the curriculum in the school. They are already learning and teaching these kind of topics in different subjects, because we talk with educators and also with the catering companies. They also work on these kind of topics before or after the lunch. So that's something that they already have knowledge on that, but they don't really know about how to eat in a more sustainable way. For example, they have a lot of questions about that. So we think there is a gap to cover here to explain more about these kind of topics. And in the quantitative survey is also observe these kind of things, no, Anna?
Yeah, and I think it's also a question of time. Probably we are for longer talking about health, and the term sustainability is more present, I will say. And even thinking about the advertisements you can watch on TV and things like this, they always focus more the attention of health properties, on this kind of things, but maybe not so much on other concepts related with sustainability.
I think I remember an infographic that showed which type of seafood you best can eat in which season. And to be honest, that's a level in the Netherlands we will not reach, or hardly, because we don't have such a varied diet in seafood, but you have. So I think that could be one part of it, to eat the right foods at the right moment, because that will is also part of a more sustainable diet.
Yeah, this is one of the things that families wanted to know, and we are going to provide in our platform links for each country, because obviously the season is going to be the same if I'm going to about Finland or Spain or Poland. So we are going to provide the links to official calendars, so people can check which is the right season for each fruit, vegetable, or fish.
Okay, thank you. One last question for Francois. You mentioned
Yes.
I think a profile report.
Yeah.
And you said it was the first approach published using the proximity approach. But
In
you also
Europe.
mentioned that Europe is behind, and that's something we don't like, of course. We want to be Europe to be ahead. So what is happening here?
But basically, I can't tell. The point is the proximity approach is something that was proposed around 20 years ago by some European experts from the ICMSF, where they mentioned that we should consider food contact surface, non-food contact surface, surface outside the production zone, and in food contact surface where it's near the equipment or on the ground. So that's what they call this proximity approach with zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, zone 4. or what some companies also mentioned, line and E1, E2, E3. In the Codex Alimentarius, there is a clear distinction between food contact and non-food contact surface. So it's also aligned with this. But in Europe, we don't have this. In Europe, in the guidelines, whether there was a report from EFSA biohazard panel mentioning you should look for critical sampling points, which means do your math, but look somewhere. So it's not very precise. And this is where we have major issue for some food business operators in Europe, because to say you should look in the environment where it's critical. Thank you. I did not think it should not be critical, but what does it mean? And they're lost. And for the moment, we do not have clear guidelines. There are a lot of guidelines in US from United Fresh Produce following the cantaloupe outbreak, from Almond Board, California, following almond issues, from GMA, from lots of guidelines. In Europe, we only have one from Profel. That's the only one. The rest is the guideline from ANSES, so it's an official one. But for interprofession, we do not have this. And apart from it, we have this recent publication from ILSI Europe, which is per se also a recommendation. But in the regulation, it's not that clear. And this is where also, I'm sorry to be recorded, but I have to say it, we have also to educate the authorities because some were discovering some years ago with the Salmonella agona outbreak or Puna outbreaks that yes, strain can be persistent and stay for decades in the processing environment. So when it comes to processing environments, I'm afraid to say, also it's been for more than almost 20 years in the regulation in Europe, not so many actors, both from authorities and industry, still understand what it means.
So
and I'm happy that we are online and that nobody can show me stones, but that's sorry for you.
There's some mission work that we have to do there.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's about 4 o'clock. I thank you all very much. So the speakers, thank you very much for giving really good and nice presentations. Manuela for organizing the webinar, make sure that everything was working fine. And all the others for listening in and showing your interest. And I hope to have you in again on the 5th of June for the next Titan webinar. Okay, thank you and have a nice day and a nice week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.